we have a mission, we have a calling, we have a vocation, we have a profession, and it's really David and Goliath. So it's a fight. Love to fight. I think I was born to fight. So it's just great that we're able to do this for folks, and it's actually something that gives us energy to do. So very blessed in representing injured workers.
Welcome to Law Meets Life, presented by Pond Lehocky, where conversations go beyond the courtroom and into the people, experiences, and moments that define who we are. I'm your host, Katie Frey, and today's guest is one of the founding partners of Pond Lehocky, Sam Pond. Sam, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So over the course of your career, you've represented thousands of injured workers. You spent decades fighting systems that aren't built for these people. They're built to oppress the powerless. So after all of these years, what keeps you motivated to do this work?
Well, first of all, my duty to the profession and the clients. So to make sure that they're represented adequately, that's really what them and their families are really the motivation. As Jerry Lehocky, my partner, says, we really don't work. We have a mission, we have a calling, we have a vocation, we have a profession. And it's really David and Goliath. So it's a fight. Love to fight. I think I was born to fight. So it's just great that we're able to do this for folks, and it's actually something that gives us energy to do. So very blessed in representing injured workers.
I love that, and I love that David and Goliath reference. And we'll get into a little bit of your background in fighting a little bit later on. But something else I want to talk about is that first job. My first job was working at Chocolate World in Hershey, which is very
Great job.
different.
Wow, wish I had that as my first job. Love chocolate.
It was a lot of watch your step for people getting on the tour ride, and
Sure.
here just one, only take one sample. So it's very different than pipeline labor at the Tasty Cake Factory. But I really believe that early jobs teach you a lot about people and about work ethic. So looking back at those blue collar jobs that you've worked in the past, what have you learned from that still shows up in your life every day today?
Well, I mean, clearly work ethic. I mean, I worked on a pipeline at just turning 17 as a union laborer. But I had a job on Mother's Day, dishwasher at the Mayfair Diner. Had a number of paper routes. John Morgan always says if you had a paper route, it's a special thing. I picked trash out of in the neighborhood to bring it down to. It was actually when I first found out about supply and demand, because I was collecting papers out of the trash in my wagon, brought it down to State Road in Northeast Philly, and I got, I don't know, $1.18, and I brought what I thought was the same amount the next week, and the guy said it was only 88 cents. And I said, why? He said, supply and demand. There's not that much demand this week for paper, so you're getting less. So there's all these lessons that you really learn about work ethic, about being independent, about being self-reliant, about having dignity in what you're doing, and then being generous with whatever you do, with your time, with your money, with your knowledge, with your experiences. I happen to have really great parents that believed in me and made me believe in me. And then you go beyond belief. You have a knowing about your life. And when you have a knowing about your life, you're in a very special place.
I love that. And I love hearing about your parents, because I know your dad was a union machinist. Your grandfather was also a union guy.
Mm-hmm.
You've spoken about seeing how firsthand that hard work supported your family. What did watching them work teach you about responsibility and work ethic?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tale that's told by many, right?
Yeah.
About how our parents work hard and we watch them work and sacrifice for us. So that's not unique to me. But in my household, that was what I saw. A very caring, loving, hardworking, earn your money, go and show up, wrap your head around your work, do it good. My mother made me start cleaning the bathrooms at 6 years old. And I learned to do the best job of wrapping your head around work. Get into it. It's an opportunity. It's about being grateful. It's about having perspective. I think that having perspective is so, so important in people's lives.
Yeah.
Have a perspective that you have your health and you have the opportunity to do these things and live a life in America. In America, where we have a constitutional republic that allows us to live our life fullest with equal opportunity for all. And that's the great equalizer. The great equalizer is the rule of law, and we happen to be the profession that protects the rule of law. Because if we don't have a rule of law, we might as well live in some third world country or Russia or China. We have the rule of law that protects all. And as lawyers, we're the guardians of that.
Very well said. Very well said. My grandfather was a truck driver. Growing up, there were a lot of conversations in my family about hard work, hard labor, and what that does to your body physically as you're providing for your family. So, do you think growing up in a union household changed the way you define dignity and success?
Oh, 100%. I think one of the things people ask me, what do I ask during an interview to hire a lawyer? And one of the things I ask is, tell me about what you talked about at the dinner table. And I think dignity is very, very important. You have to have dignity, and you get dignity from your work. I just met with some of the new law clerks with Chris Armstrong and Tom Giordano just before I came here. And I was talking to them, and we have to answer to one person first and foremost, is ourselves. And at the end of the day, if you're comfortable with yourself and what you did in regard to your responsibilities and what you said you were going to do, you won't need any medications to sleep. You'll just sleep just fine. You'll sleep just fine. And I think that that's very, very important. And as a leader, there's a whole level of duty. And we can talk about leadership, but that's very, very, very important. Whatever we signed up to do, you have to do it. And you only have to answer yourself.
Yeah.
If you can answer yourself, you don't have to worry about what anyone else thinks.
I love that. And I love that perspective on leadership because as one of the founding partners of Pond Lehocky, you have multiple not only attorneys, but staff members and their families that rely on you and your leadership in order to provide for their families. So my question here is, do you ever feel that pressure? And how do you turn that pressure and use your purpose to propel you forward?
Really, really great question. Everything's mindset. Everything's mindset. When you sign up to have the duty and responsibility to lead a ship, and I use that metaphor because I always go back to Master and Commander, the great, great movie about leadership. You have blinders on. You don't need to get clouded. You need to go back and say, what is best for the flock that I decided to lead as a leader servant? I'm here to serve them. And by serving them the best of my ability, then I will get energy from that and I will be satisfied with myself. But it's very, very, very easy to be focused on those that you lead and just don't worry about anything else. So your question is, do you get overwhelmed by that responsibility? Do I get overwhelmed by representing our clients? No, I get energy from it. I look at it as an opportunity that I've been blessed to lead. That's a blessing that I've been asked to lead. It's an honor. It's an honor. And I get energy from it. So, yes, sometimes, don't get me wrong, it gets hard. You've got crises that you don't know. There's crises all the time.
Mhm.
If you're sailing a ship, it's not always going to be sunny. You have a lot of storms. But that's when you buckle down, and that's when you say, I'm going to get out in front on the helm, and we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine, and we're going to learn from this storm. And then we can appreciate the calm waters when they come out. But there'll be more storms ahead. And we have to embrace them and deal with them. As a leader, that's what you have to do. But you have to step up and show confidence. Don't show fear. Fear is a beast. Ignorance and fear are two beasts. And fear comes from ignorance. There's nothing to be afraid of.
We'll be back with more Law Meets Life after a quick message from our sponsor.
Morning, honey.
Who are you up against today, sweetheart?
Some nobody. Construction worker or something.
Go get him, Tiger.
In other news, Pond Lehocky wins yet again.
You've got to be kidding me.
What does your client have to say to injured workers?
Just walk it up. Pond Lehocky.
There's one firm insurance companies don't want to see. Pond Lehocky. Trusted by workers to win.
We're back now with Sam Pond, founding partner of Pond Lehocky. Now, going back to the work that we do, because it's what brought me to Pond Lehocky, honestly, is the work that we do for the people that we serve. That is my ethos as a human being. It's what drives me every day to do the things that I do. But you have seen some of these people that we help and that we serve at some of the hardest moments in their lives. Financial stress. They're not sure how they're going to put food on the table. They're not sure how they're going to pay for their kids to go to school, participate in sports. After spending so much time around that, what have you learned about human nature?
Well, I think what I've learned about human nature is that people are resilient. And I think when we come in as their guardian angels, as their advocate, that we counsel and answer their questions and let them believe that they're going to be okay, that we have a strategy, that you can leave this office, leave it on our lap, we'll deal with it. Here's the strategy, here's the diagnosis legally, here's the prognosis, this is where we're going to get you, we're going to be fine. And I want you to sleep tonight because I got it. I got it. You've given me the opportunity, the professional responsibility to carry out, to get you where you're going. People are resilient. People are hardworking. People are good. You know, there's something called Article 11 under the Workers' Comp Act, and it was enacted in 1996. It's the fraud provisions. The insurance industry wanted the fraud provisions because they thought our clients committed fraud. Did you ever see that sign, report insurance fraud?
Yes.
Well, you ought to be reporting insurance companies. We have never had an Article 11 action brought against any of our clients since 1996.
Wow.
We've never had a fraud action brought. Tens of thousands of clients. Do you know how many I have filed? Thousands against insurance companies.
My gosh.
Thousands. So people are resilient, but when they're in times of need and they're broken, lift them up, put them back together. We can do that. It's really wonderful. I mean, God, to be able to do something like that, to have that gift, that's really fantastic.
Is there a better feeling?
No, there isn't.
Now, workers' compensation, like you said, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. There's misunderstanding that people think that people are filing fraudulent insurance claims. That's not the case. People still misunderstand workers' compensation and injured workers in general. What's something you wish more people understood?
Well, I think people have to understand that you gave up a constitutional right in every state in America to sue for tort against your employer for their negligence in exchange for workers' comp. That's the short end of the stick, to give up a constitutional right for damages in a courtroom in exchange for workers' comp that has no cost of living adjustment, that you have to fight tooth and nail to get medical. See, what Pond Lehocky does is Pond Lehocky not only represents you in court, but Pond Lehocky has a lot of resources. So we work with a lot of doctors. You know, the best medical you could possibly have is probably coming to Pond Lehocky after you have a work injury, because we can get you to see a doctor without an insurance card, and they're going to advocate for you, and they're going to work with us to get you better and then give us an opinion that you, in fact, are disabled because of a work injury. You know, I talked to the clerks today in a meeting about a registered nurse making $175,000 that now is stuck at $70,000, single mom, 45 years old, has a bad back, uncertainty, a mortgage, and is making half of what she made before with no cost of living adjustment. I don't know about you, that would be a little stressful. So the laws are not, we didn't get much in regard to the law. So if you think that people are taking advantage, there's no financial motivation to be on workers' comp. People don't want to be injured. People want to work. They want to have their dignity. They don't want to have the uncertainty of being able to get medical care and whether or not their check is going to come and what's going to happen in 5 years with my life. That is we have to do a better job of getting out this message. We have to do a better job of public relations in regard to telling our clients stories. This is a horrific ride for people. And I hope that the public understands that these folks need sympathy. They need compassion. And they need the right to be able to go in a courtroom and have their day. And we fight for that all the time because it's always under challenge legislatively and politically. And that's the other thing that Pond Lehocky has to do. We have to advocate politically. We have to be involved in that arena. We have to fight in that arena as well. We have to go from arena to arena to arena to continue to fight. to make sure that our folks have their day.
Now, one of the most interesting parts of your story to me is that while you were still in law school, you helped win your father's pension case. That's a huge responsibility for someone so early in their career. What did that moment mean to you?
Well, my mother and father both passed away my first year of law school. My mother passed away in October of the first semester of my first year. She had been suffering from cancer for about a year. And then my father was diagnosed terminally with cancer a month before her death, didn't tell anyone.
Mm.
And then at Thanksgiving, after Thanksgiving dinner, he told us that he was terminal with cancer. So he died in March of my second semester of my first year. What happened with that was when my father and it was interesting because my father always said that, son, life is death is part of life. Otherwise, it wouldn't really be interesting, would it? And he was really very, he was just a wonderful to deal with death. It was really fascinating to watch a man with total courage about and understanding that that's just part of life. Anyway, he was in Jefferson, at Jefferson University, and because my mother had passed, he said, I can designate my pension to you and your sister. So have the president of the union come down to the Jefferson. He filled out the paperwork. He filled that paperwork out, I think, March 20th, maybe at the 18th, I think. And then he passed away 4 days later.
Wow.
Now, the Gas Commission, after 35 years of service, by the way, my father was the only union member that was ever put through 4 years of engineering school by the United Gas Institution, which was the parent company of PGW, but never left the union. And he designated it, and they denied it. The Gas Commission denied the pension designation to my sister and I because they said he had to be alive the first day of the following month for it to be effective, which didn't sound to me to be particularly equitable. So reached out to the union lawyers, and we challenged that in the Court of Common Pleas, and we won. That's still good law today.
Wow.
44 years later, and I've been a pensioner of the union for 44 years, and I have that pension money. It's not much. I put that into a scholarship at Tarsdale Boys Club where I grew up, so that's what we do with that money. But it's still good law, and again, it goes back to challenge injustice. My father earned that pension.
That's incredible. And being able to see the work that you did be turned into law. I mean, that's incredible. So immediate into your career. So in addition to being an all-state soccer player, you boxed for decades. And I think that this surprises people a lot because it's not exactly a hobby that you hear most founding partners are picking up. So what originally drew you to boxing?
Well, I mean, growing up in a Philadelphia neighborhood, almost everyone fought. So it was kind of part of the culture in the neighborhood. I probably was 10 years old. My father, in our little living room in Northeast Philly, kind of made it as a ring. My father was a bit of an amateur. My uncle was a professional. My mother's brother, my wife's family were into boxing. Everybody was really into boxing. So it was kind of natural. And then when I was 17 in my junior year, I started fighting at Fishtown Boxing Association, where I was sparring with professionals, just kind of, as raw meat for them to beat up. So it was always part of what I wanted. I watched boxing as a kid. Wide World of Sports was the show, but I was a really big fan of, at that time, it was called Cassius Clay. Joe Frazier my father was a boxing fan, so I heard about all the great fighters and the middleweight fighters, Graziano Zale, the Philadelphia fighters. So it was really part of my everyday existence. As much as someone would follow baseball or football, I followed boxing. Back then, Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay at the time, literally would fight every month or every 6 weeks. He would fight in Cleveland and he'd fight in New York. So he was my idol, even though Joe Frazier was a Philly guy. My next door neighbor was my same age, my best friend. He's with Joe Frazier. In fact, I saw Frazier Ali for the first time when the first closed circuit at the Spectrum in 1971 when they fought at Madison Square Garden, 15-rounder, and Frazier knocked him down in the 15th, not out, but down.
Now, going back a little bit into law, you originally planned to become an engineer before going into law. What changed for you?
Um, well, I think that really understanding, I was always a history major, not a history major, a history buff. And I understood I really wanted to see what a free enterprise system with the rule of law was about. And that really just kind of, and I thought, well, let me go to law school and see what happens. What I found when I went to law school, when I had a trial advocacy course, that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to be in court. I wanted to be a trial lawyer. That's what I was doing.
That course changed things
yeah,
for you.
yeah.
So was there, I know this is probably repetitive now at this point, but was there any other specific moment where you realized that the law could be a tool to help level the playing field for everyone?
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, I mean, that goes back to our constitutional republic and the rule of law and the ability to have a courtroom. See, what we have in America and in most Western democracies is that equalizer, it's a courtroom. We have a lot of government safety tools, so OSHA or whatever. They really don't have a lot of teeth. The real equalizer is a courtroom, because trial lawyers are really the regulators of safety and the guarantors of safety in a free enterprise system. It's us, no one else. It's only us. When you have a Pinto, when you have the McDonald's case and an old lady and what they did with that and someone getting burnt, and they knew they were burning their customers, but they said, well, it's going to cost us more to change our coffee makers. We'll just let our customers get burnt. You're in business invitee. You're inviting people to come into your business to make a profit, and you're burning them. Now, the only people that can really change that are trial lawyers, because we can change it because we're going to make you pay compensatory damages and hopefully punitive damages to penalize, to deter your behavior. It's us. So I realized right along that to have the little guy fight the big guy, you needed that ring called a courtroom, with a judicial independent, someone there, or a jury of our peers to hear all the evidence, apply the law, and then make a decision. That's why people have a shot. That's why what we do is so important. That's why in Philadelphia, the change is we are seeing less people get killed on construction sites because of Pond Lehocky and other trial lawyers. Because we know that safety is good for business, because if you make things safe, you won't have to see me. Because if you have to see me, you're going to have to pay. So make things safe. Make safety part of your culture. Protect your people. Protect your employees. Don't let them get maimed and hurt and killed. And trial lawyers are the ones that have done all that.
David and Goliath. A lot of people watching this right now might not know what to do if they get injured at work. What's the biggest mistake injured workers make immediately after an accident?
Well, not giving notice that they got injured. But I'll say the biggest mistake is not calling a lawyer. Now, that may sound self-serving, but you have to realize the other great equalizer that we have is the contingent fee agreement. And that's a great equalizer because you can hire Jerry Lehocky, who has tried more cases to decision than any other lawyer in America.
Amazing.
At 20%, only if he wins. If you were to go and hire Jerry Lehocky in any other context without a contingent fee, you have to pay him $2,000 an hour. You don't have $2,000 an hour to pay him. Only if he wins and gets a result does he get paid. And he gets paid the same amount than the guy down the street isn't Jerry Lehocky. So go see Jerry Lehocky. So let's analogize this to if you had a medical problem. If you had a medical problem and you think, hey, I don't know, something's wrong, I should see a doctor. You'd have to pay the doctor for the visit. You'd get a diagnosis. If you have a diagnosis that needs treatment, you'd get a course of treatment that you'd have to pay for. And then hopefully you'd have a prognosis that you would come out better. Okay? So let's analogize the medical situation to the legal situation in regard to a work injury. If you had a work injury and you were like, well, what are my rights? What are my benefits? Do I have benefits? Is Social Security there? What about my pension? Can I get unemployment? Do I have a personal injury case? To see Jerry Lehocky doesn't cost you anything, unlike the doctor visit. So you can go see Jerry Lehocky, sit down with him, and get a legal diagnosis for free. You may not have a case, but at least you'll know whether or not you have a case. You won't be wandering around saying, what are my rights? Can I get any benefits? No, Jerry will tell you what your rights are and what the course of action is after that. And what the prognosis is, as we talked earlier, what's the strategy for my life in light of this legal issue?
Yep.
So the biggest mistake, in my opinion, is not seeing a contingency fee lawyer with great experience and great expertise in understanding what your legal diagnosis is, because it's free. Get it and get some peace of mind and get some direction legally.
Now, when you look ahead the next 10 or 20 years, what concerns you most?
Well, you're talking to me about 10 or 20 years at my age. Hold me. I'll take it. I'm kidding. Yeah.
When you look ahead at the next 10 or 20 years, what concerns you most about the future of workers and labor's protections?
Well, I mean, we're always going to be under pressure because, industry wants to run a little roughshod over their employees, and, that's the cost of doing business. So I see that always as a threat. Am I particularly worried about it in this day and age, where we're at now, at least in Pennsylvania, in the country? Not so much, but we will always have to be vigilant on that. I think the bigger challenge is to get folks what they really deserve.
We talked a lot about your competitive nature, getting in the ring, winning, fighting. But outside of work, I'm curious about what makes Sam Pond genuinely happy.
Well, my family, for sure. Now I have 2 grandchildren, so that's very special. So that makes me very happy. But we raced cars last week. I still like to compete, doing those type of things, staying in the moment. I still ski, play a lot of tennis. I'm physical activities also. But my family is first and foremost that really is going to make me ring my bell and give me great joy.
So, Sam, last question I have for you today. The name of this podcast is Law Meets Life. When you hear that phrase, what does it mean to you?
Well, I think when you're into the law, it really is your life. And again, I talked about the jealous mistress earlier. If you're really going to be a professional, just like if you were a physician, this becomes your life. It's a profession, so you've really got to immerse your entire mind, body, and spirit into it to represent and counsel your clients. So the law is my life. I think Jerry would say the law is his life, and Tom would say the law is his life as well. I mean, obviously our families are first and foremost, but the law is, in the fabric of our existence and our life. It's there all the time.
Sam, thank you so much for being our first guest on Law Meets Life.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you all for listening to Law Meets Life, from legal strategy to lived experience. Until next time.